Well, a pretty day here at the University of Tennessee as the Volunteers have parted ways with head coach Jeremy Pruitt, firing him along with 9 others on staff, both on the field and off the field, for cause, as well as athletics director Phillip Fulmer stepping down. Again, a momentous day, nearly just a little over 3 years from the last fiasco, and we're in for a couple more weeks of chaos here in Knoxville. So, Brian Ross, want to bring you along and kind of what are your initial reactions, not really to the news of the firing, but we're just moments away from the press conference. Dante Plowman, athletics director Phillip Fulmer, and Randy Boyd kind of speaking to reporters, fans, anyone who will listen, kind of assessing the situation on Rocky Top right now.
I think the chancellor was very clear about wanting to do this with integrity. And when they got a tip that maybe Tennessee wasn't doing this with integrity and maybe it was going to result in some serious concerns for them, they moved quickly. I hope the NCAA sees that and evaluates Tennessee as part of that, where as soon as you found out there was a problem, you made a move. And oh, by the way, you don't have a lot of wins to vacate anyway. But that as soon as you saw that action may be necessary, you took action. That has to help immensely when you're looking at this investigation. Here's the thing with Brian Niedermeyer. You don't go from an unknown to being National Recruiter of the Year unless you're an incredible recruiter or there's something else going on. And there was, according to the documents that are unveiled today in this investigation, there was enough going on that he's being fired for cause. So when you look at that, it's disappointing that it got to this point, but here we are. And here we are again 3 years later, firing a coach. Look, until this investigation, Jeremy Pruitt was getting a 4th year. And I think everybody was pretty clear on that. Fans may not have liked it, but until this investigation, that was the plan going forward. That plan started to change a little bit in mid-November as they start this investigation. But I think Jeremy Pruitt felt really strongly coming into this weekend that he was still going to be the head coach. And I think his actions showed that. And, was his role in it minimized? I don't know. We don't know what those investigation interviews said. But I think Jeremy Pruitt expected to survive this. I don't think he expected his staff to emerge unscathed. And I think going after Kevin Steele and making that hire was part of that. But also from the administration side, Kevin Steele is somebody who sits in and has been an interim head coach, has been a head coach, has been a longtime assistant in this league. So it gives them some options, and that's the option that ultimately they're taking right now.
So part of the termination letter to Jeremy Pruitt from the university, quote, "Your failures are likely to lead to significant penalties to the university and has jeopardized the eligibility of our student athletes." Dante Plowman said that they're facing several, don't know the specifics of it nor how many, but several level 1 and level 2 violations. Brian, you spent nearly 2 decades working in that athletics department. Tell us exactly what that means.
Level 1 and level 2 violations, level 1 being the most serious that you can possibly have. That could be any number of things, but they're all bad. I mean, they're all it's the worst kinds of things that you can do as a department, as a football program, or as an athletics program to draw the ire of the NCAA. It also comes with the most significant penalties, whether it's scholarship losses, whether it's lack of postseason. Again, all you can hope is that you mitigated some of that by taking action immediately. This was something that you didn't allow to go on after you found out about it. How far back do they go? Here's the other thing. When this whole investigation started, many people in that football building felt it was very minor and that it was over a couple of little things. Obviously, they uncovered some other things as they went along with this, and that's not uncommon, but it's also problematic because how far back does it go? You're much more likely to face significant penalties if these violations go back for Jeremy Pruitt's entire tenure, as opposed to, well, we found some things this year, and based on what happened in the last 6 months, we found it out, we made a move, and we were decisive with it. That's what you hope for. That just may not be where you're at.
Brian, Phillip Fulmer stepping away now for the second time, being a lifelong Vol, obviously in 2007 was fired, came back, trying to bring stability to the football program. Back in 2017, he said, "Hey, I'm not going to do this forever. I just want to get football back where it needs to be then I'm going to step aside. Knowing that a firing with cause was coming, he said today to the media, I suggested that along with the football coach, you hire a new athletics director because they need to be, in this together. Tennessee's next head football coach needs to be on the sidelines for the next 10 years. Lifelong Vol fan, a part of that administration for quite some time. Thoughts on Phillip Fulmer now for the second time stepping away from the program, and how should he be remembered? He'll always be a beloved head coach, and obviously one that brought a national championship home, but also now this recent tenure as athletics director.
It's disappointing that he's stepping away because I think he had some plans for who may come next had this been in a year or two, and they may still, those candidates may still be there. But I think you will never get past the fact that his coaching hire lost to Georgia State and went 3-7 in a 10-game schedule. On the other side of that, Phillip Fulmer was responsible for keeping Rick Barnes at a time that UCLA was trying to do everything they could to get him. And every other program at the University of Tennessee is better than it was when he took over on December 1st, 2017. It just is. There's no denying it. There's no moving. There's no debate about it. Every other program is better. Now, saying that everybody other than football, everything's fine is like saying, other than that, Miss Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? It really is. That's how important football is at Tennessee and at any SEC school. But the reality is his tenure will be remembered for that. He continued some things that John Curry did. Look, as we look at athletics director candidates, the last two ADs at Tennessee, and John Curry and Phillip Fulmer, spent a lot of time and a lot of effort undoing things that Dave Hart and his administration brought along. So the next person who comes in will have a great base to build on, but you got to get football right. If football's not right, the perception of your athletic program is very different than if football is right. So whoever comes in next, whatever that list looks like, how much do they rely on Phillip Fulmer for help? How much do they rely on the search firm? How much do they want Tennessee ties or not want Tennessee ties? When Beverly Davenport hired John Curry, she said it had to be a sitting Power 5 athletics director. And she said that, and she backed herself into a corner with that. Dondi Plowman didn't back herself into a corner. The one thing that she said that rings true to me, in more so than anything else in her comments, is the integrity. I think with athletic directors and I think with head football coaches, somebody with a significant NCAA penalty in their past is not going to be considered. Does that cut your list? I think it cuts some people from your list that you were interested in, or that at least your fans were interested in. You want to run it with integrity. And if you're trying to sell to the NCAA, hey, we took this action, and we locked in on making sure that we were doing it the right way, and we got rid of all the people who weren't, then you don't then bring in somebody with an NCAA history and sell that as, and then we hired this guy. That's not going to help you. So does that limit your list a little bit? It might. We'll see. But we'll also see who's interested. There are some former Power 5 head coaches who are not coaching anywhere right now. And that's where I look at this. I don't think the program has struggled the last month or so with uncertainty. And you would think that a coaching firing adds to that uncertainty. I'm not sure it does at this point, because you know what the end result is going to be. Jeremy Pruitt's not your coach anymore. You're getting somebody else. Who that is going to be a question, but there's not really the urgency that there was. This is the same week that Lane Kiffin left back in 2010, and you backed yourself into a corner when Mike Hamilton was here, because he said we have to have a head coach by this recruiting weekend. Well, then you didn't find the right guy. You didn't take the time to find the right guy. I think with the way the recruiting calendar is now, everybody's recruiting class for the most part is done. The February signing period is very small. So I think you can take your time. You don't have, I'm not saying you take your time until February, but you don't have to have an athletic director hired by next Friday and a football coach hired the Wednesday after that. You don't. So I do think Tennessee will probably move quickly on both of those. If the athletics director search is slow, they may elect to put Kevin Steele in that position for the remainder of the calendar year. I don't anticipate that happening, but it's a possibility. But I just think with the way everything sets up, there are coaches who would be willing to leave where they are. And there are some very prominent former Power Five winners who don't have jobs right now. Do they want to get back in? Do they want to come to Tennessee? I think those are questions that will be asked. But I think now that we have some certainty that there is a change, that's actually going to help the program. But item one, find an athletics director. Don't rush, but hurry.
Yeah, agenda number one is finding a replacement for Phillip. Fulmer. Donde Plowman said that numerous times, reiterating it's AD, then AD making the hire, along with the consulting of Plowman and Boyd and everybody else. But nonetheless, that's where it's going to go in. As for right now, you really feel for the players first and foremost. You feel for those early enrollees that literally Caden Salter stepped foot on campus yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of these other early enrollees got here Friday and Saturday. And so it's a business. It is what it is. Happened back in 2012 with guys like Tyler Bray and others. But nonetheless, you feel for those guys. Phillip Fulmer, Donnie Plowman are going to meet with them reportedly at about 6 o'clock tonight, have a meeting about kind of what's next. And so you kind of got into it there a little bit, Brian. But last thing before we close, I'm a football guy. I'm a defensive guy. Love defense. The way the game is going, my belief, you've got to hire an offensive guy who can develop a quarterback. Tennessee's biggest issue during the Jeremy Pruitt era, aside from recruiting violations, was quarterback and the lack thereof the development. You need to bring in a guy that's an offensive guy that can coach up a quarterback. So with that being said, and again, you got into it a little bit, on who might be and who might be cut from that list, considering recruiting violations and oral, methods, ethical methods back in the past. But who kind of would be on your list? Gus Malzahn, Tom Herman, those sitting Power 5 coaches that you were talking about that no longer have a job. Some up-and-comers, Napier and Chadwell, are some very popular names. Who would be on your short list? And I know we're going to be talking about this ad nauseum over the next week or so.
That's my list, and that's my list pretty much in the order you listed. Gus Malzahn has played for a national championship. He has SEC championships. He's beaten Nick Saban, and he does it with offense. Tom Herman comes with some concerns, and you need to vet him well with what all went on at Texas. But ultimately, he won a lot of games. He didn't win necessarily the right games for Texas. Would he win the right games at Tennessee? I don't know. And then if Billy Napier will come to Tennessee, has some Tennessee ties. I don't think there's more of a, and you never say can't miss when you're talking coaching searches, but at that level, Napier is the guy that I think has the best chance of success. And I think Jimmy Chadwell's right there. I think those guys all have an opportunity to be successful and to win some games. Again, with talking about integrity, with talking about having to potentially appease the NCAA over the next year or so, Phillip Fulmer wasn't going to hire Hugh Freeze. And I know that for 100%. Would the next guy? I don't know, but I don't think so. I think you're going to have a hard time getting the chancellor and the president to sign off on someone who was fired from their last job amid an NCAA scandal. Admittedly, there were some other personal issues as well, but a scandal that left the Ole Miss program in a deep crater for 3 years. So I think that would be a tough sell as much as fans wouldn't like it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The thinking and everything we know about where Tennessee may go changed completely when Phillip Fulmer quit being the athletics director today.
If you're a person of integrity, then Tennessee is the place for you. That was the message from
Sign
Randy
up.
Boyd. Yeah, that was a message from Randy Boyd to current and future players and prospects and all the like. And I think that's a message also someone they're looking for the next AD and head coach. So an exciting next couple of weeks upon us. Hopefully it will not linger on as long as it did back in 2017. But today, on Monday, Jeremy Pruitt's no longer the head football coach at the University of Tennessee, fired with cause, along with 9 other individuals from his staff, 2 assistants. Athletic director Phillip Fulmer stepping down, set to retire after he helps find his successor. We'll be talking about it all week long and then some. For the Eric Cain Show's Brian Rice, I'm Eric Cain here on 99.1thesportsanimal.com.